So, well.
Yeah, that was really amazing. Just sort of this technical question. When you have so many people contributing content, what happens when 2/3/4 of the people are all trying to provide the same content in the same area? How do you adjudicate that sort of process? That's an important question for a lot of utilities.
It is. I mean, whenever you dive, more you dive into the OpenStreetMap architecture, and this totally goes to the amazingness of both Steve's foresight and evolution of the product, as well as the community to step up and respond to things. The underlying architecture is really great in terms of it has change sets. It has full attribution to who contributed the information, the ability to roll that back, the ability to, when you're about to push in an edit, if you're about to push in an edit on an older version of the feature, it detects that conflict and lets you know. It's actually pretty advanced for a crowdsourced, open source platform that was developed primarily by non-traditional GIS developers. So kind of evolving the process.
But more importantly, how are the, I think Carl's question is more, how are the conflicts resolved?
So,
let's say 5 people submit changes to a road.
Yep.
There are varying accuracies which you don't know, and there are different people. How do you decide which one is used, or what do you do?
Steve should definitely hop in here, but right now, last one in wins is a simple way to put it. So.
Last one in wins.
Yeah.
We're not forcing you to use it.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because, like Andrew said, that you do track the changes, but in general, one of the things that struck me about a lot of these neo-geography systems is they tend to do something simple, push it out, and evolve it. Whereas in the traditional GIS world, we tend to try and handle all the most complex cases up front, and it takes much longer to get things out, and then it still needs rework. So I did a little bit of editing on Haiti, and basically on the email list, people were just saying, the best advice is to update, save frequently, and just come back in, because there may be people stepping on each other. So there wasn't really a very elaborate system, but just pragmatically it worked. Steve, I don't know if you want to add more thoughts there.
You said it for me.
But, again, this is one of the interesting questions, one of the things I think we're kind of moving to the debate here is how, what does this sort of approach mean for data quality? Everybody in the traditional GIS world tends to ask about metadata and that kind of thing. But it's really just that there aren't very formal processes today.
Yeah, I mean, these are all important questions to ask. And the simple answer right now is it's worked. It can get better, but it's worked. And let's keep, as we evolve the system and identify better practices, other things, evolve the system so it continues to work. It can't afford to go and step back and say, well, let's take 2 months, let's shut off the system, read only, and we'll figure out a better way, and then we'll turn it back on. We can't go and sit back and say, let's rethink ontologies here. It's keep moving forward, and it's continued to work, and that's the simple, best defense of why a system like this works, and it keeps evolving.
I have a question about where is the data stored, and how is redundancy handled, and inclusive capacity were basically how critical is this for a company from a business standpoint? How many uses to make decisions? What's the integrity of the actual servers are in this data being updated?
So the question is, where's all the data and what happens if a meteor hits where it is somewhere? It's all stored in central London at the university that I used to go to, where they provide us a couple of racks and free electricity and bandwidth and water and stuff. And there are off-site backups. And we have a very competent team of sysadmins who pay hundreds of thousands of pounds to do this professionally for other people. And in their spare time, they manage all of our servers. It's all very robust, it's all open source. If a meteor hit, we'd probably be able to pay back up within 12 hours, maybe 24, and all for free.
Yeah, and I guess it's also the case, right, that various other people, because the data is openly available, various other people can host it and serve it. So doesn't CloudMate have a separate server, for example?
Yeah, we're not precious about it, right? So all of the data is open, all the software is open. We're not NAVTAP. We're not trying to keep you away from our data, right? You can go and grab it. You can turn it into whatever format you want. You can host it yourself. You can publish it yourself. So there's a lot of redundancy built into the entire model of the thing. There is no single point of failure, I guess.
Is there any standardization to names and such? Like the Tiger data's got 5 pieces. They got the full name. They got all the different pieces.
funny you mentioned that. It's actually a debate that's going on the OpenStreetMap USA mailing list right now. And a lot of people are leaning towards USPS. So the Postal Service has a convention where they do W and road is RD. And I think people are going to standardize on that. But again, if you want to render it and have road spun out, you just replace RD with road.
Yeah, well, I was wondering, like, if somebody enters that in, like out there a lot of times, it's got AV, and it technically should be AVE. Is that something that, you know, like, except for the United States, if you're doing edits here, you can automatically kind of group some of that common stuff and make it all the same, or is it just kept as a user indicator?
It's pretty much kept as the user entered it, but another user can come along and change it.
Yeah, to be fair, there are always lots of bots that come through and touch things up. So I mean, essentially, you think with open platform, people write bots. You know, they write crawlers to go through and touch things up. So unfortunately, this is one personal pet peeve in OpenStreetMap. You can go and subscribe to your area of interest. Problem is, it's frequently filled up with very bots that come through are cleaning up things. So it's hard to sometimes pick a human out of that. But so people play with that, experiment with that, and then that's where, you know, sometimes you're like, oh, you went and edited too much, and those get rolled back.
And another interesting thing that, you know, really in a way surprised me when I first saw OpenStreetMap is, you know, there is no fixed data model. You just add a feature and you can add any number of tags to it, and you can call those whatever you want. There's no real validation. It's all, there's a sort of consensus on the wiki that's documented, and there's work going on to make that a bit more accessible. And some of the front-end tools kind of hide that and present a more predefined format. But again, that struck me as interesting. It's quite different from, you know, I've worked just with utilities where we've argued for months between different departments over what these fields should be called and whatnot. And so again, the pragmatic approach was just put the system out there, let people add whatever tags they want. But, you know, it is consistent enough that people write routing applications and do nice looking maps and that kind of thing. I don't know if you have any other comments on that, Steve.
No, I'm waiting for James to say something.
I was just going to say that the tags, I find the tags the biggest turn off of OpenStreetMap. Just the, you know, there's death by tags. Everybody tags, you know, there's these accepted tags that everyone tags things correctly, but then if you look at the database, it just gets, people are tagging, you know, I saw, I was in San Francisco and someone tagged whether the playground was rusty or not, or the playground equipment was rusty. And it's just, you can get, I mean, I guess it's one of the, in a way it's a good thing about OpenStreetMap, but it's another thing, people get really, there's a lot of opinions, you know, you have, there's a model railroading group I saw was an OpenStreetMap, and they were tagging outdoor model railroad, what do you call them, garden railways or something like that, and all of a sudden there's all these tags about garden railways that are available in my database. So, you know, it's part of the joy of working in OpenStreetMap, and probably one of the most frustrating things as a user of it is the tags.
If the most frustrating thing about OpenStreetMap is that we have some model railways in there, we've won. It's brilliant. But what James is talking about is OpenStreetMap doesn't have an ontology. There is no top-down definition that a freeway is type 54 and a road is type 37. Everything is key value pair tags. So name equals A street, highway equals residential, those kinds of things. And they're entirely freeform, and anyone can enter anything you like. In the same way that you can tag Flickr photos, or that Wikipedia is entirely freeform, you can put anything in there. And that leads to, you know, some people putting in weird stuff.
Or you get street equals highway, or highway equals 1.
Yeah.
And you have different ways of tagging the same object, but just someone is used to tagging it one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Peter's hopefully brought up some tags.
Yeah, I just brought up an example on the screen. I'll give it to you in a moment, Dr. Bob. But just, so that just shows tags. And here you can actually see it in the US. There's been a mass import of Tiger data, which is a good starting point, but in general it needs quite a bit of cleanup. So on some of those there are tags that are left over from Tiger. If that had just been a street created from scratch, it would typically have far fewer tags. You know, highway equals residential and name would probably be the two main tags that you would add if you were just adding a street from scratch. But you can add, you know, in some cases you inherit tags like that, but you can add whatever you want. If I decide I want to add a tag for road surface or something, I can do that.